I take a look, I have you write down what you've been eating for the past week, everything that you're eating and drinking, and I take a look at it and I identify the best things that you're doing, the best healthy habits that you have with your diet, and then I identify the worst things that you're doing. And I expand on the good things, and I start to reduce the bad things. And while I'm reducing it, I'm giving alternatives. So, okay, so you like to eat Chips Ahoy. I know they're delicious, but they're really bad for you. Let's have you try this cookie. This is made out of better ingredients. It's less harmful while we are working on reducing your sugar addiction.
Yes.
So that it makes it doable. This way people don't feel like, you know what, this is too hard and I can't do it. And then they give up.
We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 Strength and Health Authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode.
Hello, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Strong by Design podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Coach Chris Wilson here hosting. Always an honor to host one of our episodes. As you know, if you've listened to past episodes, we take turns here at Critical Bench, the business, the company that I work for. We take turns hosting our podcast named Strong by Design. And we have different hosts for various topics and subject matters. The ones I really love to tackle are certainly fitness-based and holistic health, but I do love to get into the other things like faith and family. We're kind of all over the map, but we have so many terrific past episodes with our amazing hosts like Jared and Tanya and Mike, and so much to go back and listen to. So if you're a new listener, welcome, but there's about 300 episodes plus for you to go back and listen to. So please go back and do that. There's a little bit of something for everyone on our show. And if you're a return listener of the show, we just welcome you back. Thank you so much for coming back to the show. And we get as much out of it as we hope you are. So fantastic. If you could do us one favor, whether you're a return listener or a brand new one, if you could hit 5 stars and maybe consider leaving us a review, that would really help us. It really does a lot to let other people know what the show means to them and how it's benefited them in some way. And at the end of the episode, if you could share it with a friend or a family member, and don't worry, I will remind you to do that, because sharing is really what helps the show reach more people. So we thank you in advance for that. So our guest today, Dr. Cori Stern, has joined us. We welcome her to the show. She's a triple award-winning chiropractic doctor, recognized by her peers as outstanding in the field of nutrition response testing. She's also been asked to travel around the country to teach nutrition response testing to other doctors and health practitioners, and is one of only 3 people in the world doing this today. Very interesting. She graduated from Bridgeport Chiropractic College and has been in private practice for a little over 20 years, since 2001. As a creator of the Dr. Cori Stern Take Control of Your Health channel, known for its easy to understand and shareable health information, Dr. Cori is dedicated to educating the public on ways they can learn about their health and advocate for themselves. We are certainly in line with that here at Strong by Design. That's the mantra of the show is you are strong by design, by the way that you design your life. But we also believe that you were created strong by design by our Creator. So it's kind of a twofold meaning, which I think is very just very cool. And so anyway, welcome to the show, Dr. Cori. It's so great to have you.
Thank you so much, Chris. I've been listening to it, so I feel really thrilled to be a part of it.
Oh, terrific. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. We have another listener, ladies and gentlemen. I'll take it. I'll take every download I can get. It's because I think our show goes in so many directions. It can be attractive to a pretty vast audience. Certainly, as we were saying right before we hit record, it's kind of like we really speak to that 30 something to 60, 70-year-old something. I mean, it's a kind of a big demographic, but kind of split down the middle, men and women who really have a desire to do something for themselves that's moving them closer to health, something that they can fix in their lifestyle, new habits they can adopt, things that can get them out of pain, right? And maybe distance themselves from some of these, kind of typical approaches with medications and kind of going through the motions of prescription drugs and all of this, which, yes, I mean, there certainly are moments and there are people and there are things that are necessary for people in order to survive and to deal with pain and chronic illness. But at the same time, I think we have so much ability in the way we live our lives and the things that we do for ourselves, the way we eat, the way we move, that we can really kind of take charge too if we're willing to. So I love having experts like yourself to be able to kind of go, talk about these things from, all the experience that you've had and education that you've had. I do really want to know, because I was reading about your life and your childhood, and I find it so interesting because this is how so many of us grew up in like the 70s and 80s, right? Eating rice-a-roni, eating like frozen fish sticks and all the, like just all the kind of, if you want it for the better part, it's crap food, eating stuff that's from off of a shelf that's been sitting there for months at a time and isn't whole, fresh, good, clean sources of nutrition. So will you talk to our listeners a little bit about your upbringing and what really drove your passion to do what you're doing today?
Yeah, the term that you use, crap food, is perfect because that's exactly what I call it. So I like to start my story as a fetus. Both of my parents, you're created from the material that your parents provide to make a baby, and both of my parents were raised on crap food, and they both were heavy smokers. And my mom was pregnant with me in 1962. This is before the Surgeon General's warning that cigarette smoking may be harmful to your fetus. So she smoked cigarettes and I believe marijuana as well. So I was literally born with what I would call a crap body. I call it a garbage body because you are made out of the stuff that you eat. And we'll be talking more about that, I think, during the show. But I was always sick as a child. I always had throat infection, an ear infection, a bladder infection. I was always on antibiotics. And I thought this was normal. I thought all kids were sick all the time and chugging down the bubble gum tasting liquid that they made child antibiotics taste like, and chewing on baby aspirin because I always had a fever. And by the time I was 15, I had a throat infection that would not resolve. I kept being put on one antibiotic after another, and nothing was helping me. And now I'm a teenager. It happened to be the summertime. I was too sick to hang out with my friends, and I got angry. And I came to the conclusion that medical doctors don't know how to fix these things.
Sure.
So I decided that I was going to fix myself and started doing some research. I was an avid reader. I read every health book that I could get my hands on. My stepmother was actually a nurse, so we had all kinds of textbooks in the house. And I didn't find anything that was helpful. But then I stumbled on a magazine that she subscribed to called Prevention. And that was an alternative, it was a mainstream alternative health magazine that was very popular. This is in the mid-70s. It's actually still in publication today. And when I read that magazine, I discovered something that astonished me. And that was that there's actually a connection between what you eat and your health. So that concept had never been presented to me, certainly not by my parents, not by my teachers. And then looking back on where most people get their education about nutrition, TV shows, commercials. So I had a lot of wrong information. So I decided when I was 15 to completely change my own diet. I was living in Manhattan at the time in a high-rise building, and there were lots of kids in the building, and I was the building babysitter. So I was raking it in. I was making $1 an hour, which was big money back then. And I spent all of my money on food, and I completely eliminated sugar and white flour and chemicals from my diet. And then in my local health food store, and if you can believe this, back in the 70s in Manhattan, there was one health food store in my neighborhood. They had a book rack. You remember those spinning book racks with paperback books on it?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I started studying the books there, and I found a book called Back to Eden. And that was written in the 1920s, and it is, I call it the herbal Bible. It has every single herb that God has grown on this earth to help keep us healthy. And the book explained the therapeutic benefit of each herb. So I became obsessed with this book, and I read it, every waking moment. And I started to also buy some herbs and make concoctions with them. And between cleaning my diet and taking the herbs, I did what I intended to do. I healed myself.
Wow.
And that kind of planted a seed in me that maybe one day I would be able to help other people to restore their health with nature, with things that God provided for us to keep us healthy. So it was a little bit of a long, winding road for me to get from there, age 15, when I was still in high school, to when I finally was able to graduate with a degree in chiropractic. And I chose chiropractic not only because I think chiropractic is amazing and much needed by most people, but also because in New York State, it allowed me to practice nutrition, and that's really what I wanted to do. So I started doing that in 2001. And so right now I've hit my 23rd anniversary of helping to restore health of countless numbers of people using all natural means.
Yeah. It's what a journey, huh? And you wouldn't have probably the strong feelings or the passion had you not endured some of those, tough moments, and that, having those realizations as a young person that, like, man, this is not right. Like, why am I always suffering? Why am I always feeling off? I'm always in pain. I'm always, chronically just ill and sick. And the first reaction to that for so many people is, how do I medicate this? And it's like putting a Band-Aid on a wound that requires surgery.
Right.
And it's all you can do is, like, keep putting on a new Band-Aid every time the one gets saturated and falls off, and I don't like that approach. Again, I realize that some folks are in different situations than others that require maybe some type of medical treatment, but you healed yourself naturally. You healed yourself with what you drank and what you ate and the herbs that you read about and things. And that seems like a really big undertaking for a lot of people, right? Like, wow, I have to do all that for myself. I don't feel right either, and I want to fix myself. Do I have to do that?
And that's a good point. So one of the things that helps me to be so successful in helping people is helping people change their habits on what we call a gradient, very small steps at a time. So let's say, for example, I take a look, I have you write down what you've been eating for the past week, everything that you're eating and drinking, and I take a look at it and I identify the best things that you're doing, the best healthy habits that you have with your diet, and then I identify the worst things that you're doing. And I expand on the good things, and I start to reduce the bad things. And while I'm reducing it, I'm giving alternatives. So, okay, so you like to eat Chips Ahoy. I know they're delicious, but they're really bad for you. let's have you try this cookie. This is made out of better ingredients. It's less harmful while we are working on reducing your sugar addiction.
Yes.
So that it makes it doable. This way people don't feel like, you know what, this is too hard and I can't do it. And then they give up.
That's right. Yeah, the baby step approach kind of works in all arenas when you're trying to change something. If you're trying to exercise a little bit more, you don't go into a brand new 90-minute daily routine, that requires just tons of equipment. And hey, do 10 minutes, go to the gym and do something for 10 minutes, or do this at home with just body weight. There needs to be an entry point that is easy enough, satisfying enough, and results driven, where people start to say, ooh, that wasn't too bad, and I think I kind of liked it, or it does make me feel better, like I'm moving in the right direction. And so I love that approach. It's just a baby step, or even a good habit for a bad habit. It's like, what's here, like what you said, here's the best things that you're doing. How do we enhance that? And here's the worst things you're doing, and how do we kind of try to decrease that, or start to move those off your list over time. So I really do like that. Is there somebody in particular over this time, and usually these are questions that come at the very end of a podcast when everyone's already like checked out and like looking for like the next episode, right? I want to ask this question early. Is there somebody in that comes to mind besides yourself, obviously, because your own journey, your own story is pretty incredible. Somebody that was really in a bad way, physically, mentally, their nutrition was really poor. They were kind of in a really bad place, and they were able to make that 180-degree shift and really kind of come back and kind of get their life back just by really taking action and investing in themselves. Anybody come to mind?
I have hundreds
I'm
of
sure.
stories
Okay,
like that.
So pick one of your favorites.
I'll pick one of my favorites. I had a woman come in. She was brought in by her brother, and she was wearing dark glasses and could not speak, and she had uncontrolled muscle movement. So I couldn't make eye contact with her because she had the dark glasses on. I couldn't talk to her because she couldn't speak, and she was continuously moving. So when I first saw her, I thought maybe she had, special needs, or I wasn't sure what was happening. And then her brother told me her story. She had worked for a cardiologist for 20 years. And over those 20 years, the cardiologist told her over and over and over again, fat causes heart disease. Fat is bad for you. Don't eat fat. So she took it very literally, and she did not eat any fat at all. And slowly over time, she developed a severe case of dry eye. And it got so bad that she actually lost her vision.
Oh my gosh.
But medical doctors could not figure out why she lost her vision. And they were trying different things, giving her different tests. And one of the things that they tried was injecting her around her eye muscles with Botox. I'm not exactly sure what the logic was there. And the Botox, and this can happen with Botox because it's something, the actual bacteria that Botox comes from, it's the botulinum bacteria actually creates paralysis. That's why people who get, Botox injections, it paralyzes your face muscles, but it also stops wrinkles from forming. But in this case, it paralyzed her jaw muscles, and she couldn't speak, and she couldn't eat. She couldn't chew. She had to eat through, they had to puree everything for her, and she had to eat through a tube.
Oh my goodness.
And then to make matters worse, since nobody could figure out what was wrong with her, they put her on an antidepressant, which is very common when you go to a medical doctor and you have all these symptoms and they can't figure out what's wrong. They run tests and everything comes back negative. They say, well, it's all in your head. So here, take this pill. It'll make you feel better. Basically a chemical restraint that will shut you up. So they gave her the antidepressant, which caused her to have a side effect called tardive dyskinesia, which is when you have uncontrolled muscle movement. So that's how she presented to me. She had no vision. She could not move her jaw, and she had tardive dyskinesia.
My goodness.
Well, let me tell you, within 3 weeks of me getting some good quality fat into her body, her vision came back to normal. No problem. We got her off the antidepressant. You have to wean off of these types of medications slowly, but we were able to do that. Thank God the tardive dyskinesia went away. It doesn't always go away when you come off the drug, but in her case it did, maybe because of also some of the other supplements and nutrients I was giving her. It took another 6 months for the Botox to finally wear off. Nothing that I did could speed up that process, but it did. And she was able to go back to living a normal life and, now eating fat, which is an essential nutrient.
Yeah, go figure.
That every human needs.
Wow. Yeah, and that's real. I really wanted to get into that because I've always been so fascinated by how, you listen to this person, it's you're going to get, you listen to 10 experts, you're going to get 10 different disciplines, 10 different things that you should be doing or ways of eating. And first and foremost, I can't stand anything that's elimination based. I don't believe in any kind of elimination diet. Our bodies are designed for proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. It depends on where we're getting those things from, of course, and there are better options than others. But to completely eliminate a macro category makes just zero sense to me. There's so many wonderful, good, healthy fats out there, and obviously let's talk about some of them, some of your favorites. But everyone knows that protein is essential, right? I mean, protein's the building block of amino acids and your muscles, right? And everyone realizes on some level that carbohydrates, good complex carbohydrates, are necessary for energy, for output, especially for highly active people and athletes and stuff. They require a certain amount of carbohydrates in order to fuel their movement. But it got all out of whack. I don't know if that, back on that food pyramid that should have been completely destroyed. It was all based on this big business and big companies trying to make money off of everyone. It should be completely almost flipped upside down, the darn thing. But can we talk more about fats? Because I think we just need more people to hear this and understand how very important they are to overall function. I mean, look, somebody went blind because they were eliminating fat from their diet. Our brains require fat. Our skins require fat. Requires fat. Let's talk about that a little bit in terms of like your favorite things to get people going and to bust some myths.
Well, let's first talk about how the myths got started. Yeah. The history of how fat became a dirty word.
Yeah.
And, the other part of it is, unfortunately, it has that connotation, the association with body fat that people want to eliminate. So fat just became this bad guy.
Yes.
It really started in the late 19th century, believe it or not, early 20th century with the invention of the scale. Not that the scale wasn't invented, but it became widely available to the general public. I don't know if anybody listening is old enough to remember those scales in the old-fashioned drugstores that you'd put money in and be able to get your weight. So those things became readily available, and people started getting a little bit obsessed with weight. And then life insurance companies started making recommendations about what your weight should be. So at that time, the recommendation, if you needed to lose weight, was to go on a low-calorie diet. And the easiest way to reduce your calories was to reduce your fat intake, because fat is, calorie for gram for gram, fat is more calorie dense. So then in the 40s and 50s, a whole bunch of studies were done that demonstrated that fat and cholesterol caused heart disease. And they called that the diet heart hypothesis. But the truth is that there was actually no conclusive evidence that that was true. And by the way, I just want to clarify that fat and cholesterol are two completely different components of nutrition. You need both of them. A lot of people don't realize that. And we could talk more about it if you want to. So then the diet heart hypothesis started, becoming very, very well known. And, if you don't want to get heart disease, don't eat fat, especially saturated fat. So saturated fat is like animal fat. And that was the really bad fat. And by the way, in the 1940s, heart disease became the leading cause of death for the first time in human history. And I'm going to tell you why in a minute, why that happened. But then, to make matters worse, in the 60s, the sugar industry started funding research to make it look like fat was the cause of disease and sugar was fine. It was good for you, right? So then that led us into the 80s, where all these fat-free junk foods started getting manufactured, literally like cake with fake fat and really high in sugar. And then they came out with that fake fat Olestra, which was, it was just absolutely horrible. It was giving people severe stomach cramping and diarrhea. They took it off the market finally. But how did we get to the point in the 40s where all of a sudden heart disease was the number one cause of death? That started with Procter & Gamble. They started in the early 1900s making a type of fat that was kind of man-made. They did it originally. Procter & Gamble was originally making candles, and candles were made out of tallow, which is cow fat. And they wanted to find a cheaper way to make them, and they found that cottonseed oil was very cheap. And if they pumped hydrogen into cottonseed oil, it became a solid. So it became like this fake tallow or fake lard. But, however, candles were, losing popularity because of the electricity started being, used in houses. So they decided that why don't they sell it as a food? So they introduced it to the food market, to the public in 1911. They called it Crisco, which actually stands for crystallized cottonseed oil.
Wow.
And cottonseed oil is really bad for you, and the way that it's manufactured is really bad for you. To this day, it's still used in foods, cottonseed oil. So basically, that's the invention of, I call it man-made fat or commercial fats, are what ended up causing heart disease to become prevalent. And they did a wonderful marketing job. They sold it as a less expensive alternative to butter, easier to use, so on and so forth. And they made it sound like it was, the best, that it was healthier for you than lard. which none of which was true, but everybody believed it. And from there, food industry just started making discovered they could make really cheap cooking oil they use petroleum, hexane. They use a petroleum-based solvent, which ends up in your oil. And they just, the whole process of making it is disgusting. So I have a description of how it's made on one of I have a YouTube health show, and one of them is, I think that the name of the video is Fat Good For You or something like that. And I describe the process with which they make these oils. So my basic datum that I give all my patients is, if God didn't create it, it doesn't belong in your body. And so all of these oils that are commercially made, so yes, a bottle of olive oil or avocado oil, okay, if it's expeller pressed, cold pressed, it doesn't go through that process with the hexane and all the other garbage they put in there. Those oils, those commercial cooking oils, canola, which by the way is not a real word, that's a made up word. It's actually rapeseed.
Right.
All these seed oils, sunflower, safflower, cottonseed, canola, they are extremely inflammatory. Okay, so they do not belong in your body if you want to be healthy. So now that we went over that, what fats are good? So I already mentioned some of them. So olives are a great source of fat. Olives and avocados are both fruits. So olive oil and avocado oil are good. Avocado oil has a little bit of a higher smoke point than olive oil. So in other words, it's better for cooking if you're going to use medium heat. Very low heat, you could use olive oil or use it cold on salads. Nuts and seeds are good quality fats, but you have to make sure they're fresh. A lot of people just eat nuts and seeds that are already out of the shell. They start oxidizing, and the oxidation process makes them rancid. So you want to eat really fresh nuts or seeds. The other very important fat is omega-3 fatty acids, which is found in cold water fish like salmon and anchovies and herring.
Cod is a good one, right?
Yeah, cod, yeah. A lot of fish has omega-3. So what I found, though, is that most Americans are really deficient in omega-3 fatty acids, and you actually need to try to find a way to supplement it, because you can't really correct deficiencies with food alone. You would have to eat too much of it.
Right.
And then, and after I talk about what fats I recommend, I'll also talk about why they're important and what they do for you, because I think people need to know, why are omega-3s important? Like, a lot of people they know that they need it, but they don't know why.
They've heard it from their cardiologist or from their neighbor or from a podcast, and so they just take them. But it's almost just kind of in blind faith that, I heard this from an expert, so I'm going to take it. But why? Yeah, what are some good takeaways that someone listening right now could say, this is why I should be taking omega-3?
Well, first of all, they're anti-inflammatory, so that's a really important reason. And the two active components of omega-3s are called EPA and DHA. So you'll see, if you look on the bottle, you'll see that if it's a good quality fish oil, that's what's in it. And EPA is especially good. They're both really good for your brain. Okay, they help your brain function. EPA is especially good if you have a tendency to be depressed or have down moods. EPA I call it like putting sunshine in your brain. DHA is really good if you tend to be anxious or nervous. It helps to relax the nervous system. So some people need an equal amount if, let's say, they have stable moods. Other people do better with a higher EPA ratio, and some people do better with a higher DHA ratio. Let's say if you're having trouble sleeping, you can take an omega-3 with a higher DHA ratio at night to help relax your nervous system. So let me talk about some other fats that people don't realize are good for them. Egg yolks. Egg yolks are an amazing fat, and they contain biotin, which is really good for your hair. So it turns out that egg yolks are good for your hair. One of the things that people don't know is
by
that...
the way, I imagine you eat a fair amount of egg yolk. Are you an eggy person? Are you an egg eater?
I am, and I eat a very specific type of egg, which I'll explain.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
I hate to pause you on that, but I was just going to comment on my beautiful head of hair, and I have been eating eggs, and I have always made a point to eat whole eggs, not just egg whites. Like that became such a fad for a long time.
Right. Well, God made them with the whites and the yolks for a reason,
that's right?
So
I love it. So continue.
So the thing about mentioning biotin is in egg yolks, a lot of vitamins and minerals are in fat, particularly what we call the fat-soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. So if you don't eat enough good quality natural fats, you're going to be deficient in those vitamins. But fats are also a carrier for minerals. They transport minerals. So when you're eating good quality fats that are rich in minerals and vitamins, it's the best way for your body to absorb them. So the kind of eggs that I eat are eggs that we call pasture-raised, meaning that the chicken is eating off the ground. That's what chickens are supposed to do. And they eat, insects, and actually chickens will eat anything. Yeah. This is a New York City girl, but I have learned about chickens and chicken feed. So I get my eggs from a farm in Pennsylvania, and I know what the farmer is feeding the animals. The whatever animal food I eat there, I know what the animals are eating because you're eating what the animals are eating. And so just to, give you an example, what the next thing I was going to talk about as far as healthy fat is animal fat. So fat from eating red meat, fat from eating pork, fat from eating chicken. All of those fats are actually really good for you as long as the animals are healthy and eating what they're supposed to be eating. So cows are supposed to eat grass. Grass is loaded with nutrients, right? Grass is growing in the soil. That's where minerals come from to begin with. And then we can't eat grass, but cows have more stomachs than us, so they eat grass, and then we get the benefit of the minerals from the grass and the soil that the cows are eating from. So if your listeners are interested in knowing where they can get food from a farm like this, we call it a small-scale family farm with nutrient-dense food, clean, not sprayed with chemicals. I actually have a link that if you want to put it in the description of your podcast, you put your zip code in anywhere in the United States and you will get matched with a farm where they'll either deliver to you or you can go pick up or they can ship to you. And if you have listeners outside the U.S., I have a different link.
Wow.
So
give me both those links and I will gladly share them in the description.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Listeners do that. Yeah.
So here's another really good quality fat that a lot of people think is bad, and that was thanks to Procter & Gamble telling people that butter is bad and Crisco is good, but butter is a very nutrient-dense fat. And it's especially good if it's raw, meaning not coming from pasteurized milk. Again, the way God created milk. The pasteurization process is a man-made intervention which completely denatures the protein in the milk and renders it a dead food. So raw milk is loaded with probiotics and fat-soluble vitamins, and there's a particular vitamin that a lot of people never heard of called vitamin F that's present in raw dairy, but more so in raw butter and cream because it's more concentrated, and that's called vitamin F. Vitamin F is something not recognized by the FDA, and it is extremely important for so many body functions. It's important for thyroid health, for prostate health, for your skin. It helps to transport vitamin D out of your skin and into your cells. So when you sit out in the sun and you get a sunburn, that's too much vitamin D in your skin. That's what causes your skin to be red. If you have enough vitamin F, it helps to move the vitamin D from your skin into your body where it needs to go. This is how to prevent skin cancer, right? So that's the other whole kind of bogus, you need to wear toxic chemicals called sunscreen on your skin to prevent cancer. No, you don't. You need to eat vitamin F in adequate amounts, and you won't get a sunburn. And I'm very fair-skinned. I have freckles. I sit out in the sun. It's been years since I've used sunscreen. I would not even consider doing it. I mean, don't sit out in the tropical sun at noon if you're fair-skinned for 5 hours. That's not a good idea. But I sat out in the Florida sun from 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. a few weeks ago with no sunscreen on and no sunburn. And vitamin F, by the way, is also found in organ meats like liver. And so people stopped eating organ meats. They stopped eating raw dairy. So everybody's deficient in vitamin F. It's also available as a supplement. So if you don't want to eat those things, organ meats also contain really good quality fat, or very nutrient dense. And again, I think God, intended for us to eat this way, eat the whole animal. That's how early humans ate. And if you really, really don't want to eat organ meat, because a lot of people don't, the farm that I get my food from actually makes ground beef and grinds organ meat into it. You can't taste it. And I had some for dinner last night. But you can get supplements, organ meat, grass-fed organ meat supplements.
You can even get it as a spice. I had a chef on earlier this year who has a company, and of course the name's kind of, I don't want to go digging for it at the moment right now, but great, because you get these little pouches that have their freeze-dried organ meat that he makes spices out of. Nice. It's called Pluck, and you could just sprinkle it right on your foods, and it tastes delicious, and you're getting all the nutritional benefits, obviously, along with a nice flavor. Yeah.
So I can tell my patients.
Yeah, Chef, I believe Barry is his last name, Pluck. Look it up. It's terrific, fascinating stuff because of the nature of the nutritional value of organs, and look, you look in the animal world, and what's the first areas that they go for, right? So prey or predatory animals, when they're eating other animals, they go for the throats to kill, and then they eat their organs. They eat their organs. They eat their brains, right? All those good, rich parts of the body.
Funny story about that. So I feed my dogs a raw diet, but when I take them to the park every day, and I call her the chicken heart lady. So she carries around dehydrated chicken hearts as dog treats, and the minute they see her, they are not my dogs anymore. They just leave me, and they'll follow her anywhere. They'll do anything for those chicken hearts. So,
oh my goodness,
that's a good analogy.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think that we should also talk a little bit about the importance of fat in your body, the physiology of it. So, you mentioned brain earlier, and that is probably the most important thing that fat does, because your brain is mostly fat, it's also, a lot of your brain is cholesterol as well. So fat and cholesterol are what your brain operates on. And a lot of people who avoid fat and take drugs to reduce their cholesterol end up with dementia. So I have a few videos on cholesterol on my channel because it's such a misunderstood thing. And to this day, it almost every single day a patient comes in telling me, my doctor told me my cholesterol is too high and I need to take a cholesterol lowering medication. So quick story about that. I had somebody in yesterday who said, I got my blood work and my cholesterol is much lower. So I think it was 250. I put her on some supplements and it went down to 169. And I said, you know what? That's okay. It's actually, in my opinion, it's a little too low for you and your age. She's in her late 60s because alternative doctors don't view the total cholesterol number the same way that conventional medical doctors do. I said, I think it's a little bit too low. I think we're going to reduce the supplement that I gave you to help with it. And she said, oh, but my medical doctor told me she wants it to be 100. And I said, oh, no, not unless you want dementia. Yeah. Cholesterol, your hormones are made out of cholesterol. Your hormones are made out of cholesterol. Your brain requires it. So it should not be that low. It's what the conventional medical numbers are completely wrong. What's important with cholesterol is the quality of it, not the quantity. If it's fluffy, it's good. If it's sticky, it's not as good. So we just fix it so it's fluffy. And then it doesn't matter. It could be 300. Not going to cause you any harm. So that was part of the diet heart hypothesis that cholesterol was, cholesterol and fat were the bad guys, and that is incorrect. Inflammation is the bad guy. So besides the brain, fat is also very important for your vision, as we demonstrated with that story about my patient. Your eyeballs are made out of DHA, like not completely, but the omega-3 fatty acid. Your immune response is dependent on fat. Your fertility. Traditional cultures like indigenous tribal cultures had rituals prior to trying to get pregnant. They would eat specific kinds of fat. Wow. They would go on an all-fat diet.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's one of the many reasons why we're seeing increases in infertility worldwide right now. It's also important for energy production. Your body uses fat for energy. Your mood, hormones also, fat and cholesterol for your hormones. And as I mentioned earlier, mineral absorption. So it's just as important as protein and carbohydrates.
Yes.
They're all equal, right?
Right.
There's not one more important than the other.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Not that many episodes back, I had a great conversation with another doctor, a naturopath, homeopath, an acupuncturist, and very much in the same line of thought as this conversation with, taking that natural approach. And something that came up was just more people focusing on sitting down together for a meal, a home-cooked meal. And just, if you think back to, again, we grew up at a time where frozen TV dinners and stuff was kind of like the norm. Yeah. But there was still those moments where we did have the sit down, the prepared meat, the handmade mashed potatoes, the all the different accoutrements, of a nice big meal. And obviously there's a lot of work and stuff involved in that, but what makes that meal different from so much of what's available to people today with convenient eating? And really, it comes down to these are whole food. These are real food items. These are fresh food items. These are foods that weren't manufactured in a store, sitting on a box on a shelf for a period of weeks and months. They were colorful, I think if just more people could get back to doing more of that and less of this, I'll just grab a protein bar, or I'll just grab a shake here and do that, and fat free this and artificially sweetened that. And then it's not that bad as one-offs here and there, as little fillers in your day or in your week. But when it becomes every day, multiple times a day, over a period of years, you can't tell me that that's not going to have some type of negative effect on you long term, because we are what we eat.
Every meal that I eat and that I feed my family is homemade. It is more work, but you know what I'm grateful for? I'm grateful that I don't have to go out hunting or gathering to get my food. I'm grateful I don't have to go fetch my water from a stream or a well. I'm grateful that I don't have to chop wood to make a fire. So is it really that much work to
That's right.
go shopping and then turn your stove on and get a knife and just chop a few things up? I mean,
That's right.
Perspective is everything.
Perspective is everything. And we can all do a little bit better. Not so much. I think you are really dialed in. Obviously, it's your profession, and I think you've gotten really good at making the right choices for you and for your family, for what's healthiest and what's the fresh choice. But I think even myself, where I'll know like the best option, I don't necessarily always make that choice. But I take great pride in grilling fresh foods at home, and my wife is really good in the kitchen, and we make a lot of meals together and prep it out for the week. And she does some really good creative things that I'll gladly eat as leftovers for 3-4 days afterwards, because they taste good, and it makes me feel better when I'm eating that stuff than when I'm eating crap. Because when you eat crappy food, you feel like crap. I mean, let's face it. Who feels great after they pound down $15 of McDonald's? No one feels good after that. Everyone, you don't feel right in your gut. That makes sense, right? Or you'll feel like you're getting what's the pain in your chest that people get oftentimes?
Angina.
Yeah. From when they're.
You mean like indigestion?
Yeah,
heartburn.
indigestion and heartburn is what I'm trying to say, right? Heartburn, because you get the stomach acids are like all out of whack because you're eating all this Frankenfood crap. I know a lot of this is people are like shaking their head. They're like, yeah, I know fast food's not that good for you, but it's going to come with a consequence at some point. We can know what the right thing to do is, but are we willing to take that next step and actually do it? Because making the wrong choice for decades at a time are certainly going to bite you in the butt, and going to lead to cancer, or going to lead to diabetes, or a combination of those things, or heart disease, and life's no fun when you're dealing with those things.
It's really a decision that I pose to my patients, especially the older ones. I have people in their 80s and 90s that I have this conversation with that, do you want to live as long as possible and be as healthy as possible while you're alive? Because if you do, then you're going to have to make very specific choices. However, it's not invalid to decide, I'm just going to eat whatever I want, and whatever happens, happens. If I die, I die. If I get sick, I get sick. But I have them make the conscious decision, and that's what I think people need to do, because most people are not going to be able to live a long, healthy life if they eat garbage food. You might have the occasional exception, somebody with amazing genes and nothing they do, affects them. That's good for you. But otherwise, most of us if we do want to live long and healthy, then we have to make some changes because our society is not supporting that, long, healthy lifestyle right now. But there are people, believe it or not, who don't care. They don't care if they get sick. They don't care if they die young. And, I know those people as well. And generally, they'll come to me for help with their health. But I have family members. My own dad died when he was 47 of a heart attack. And his doctor told him, if you don't stop, over drinking alcohol and smoking and eating crap, you're going to die of a heart attack. And he said to us, the family, I'd rather die than give that stuff up. And
My
he did.
Goodness.
So
and
there are people that make those decisions. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, Cori, I'm 47. I couldn't imagine. I mean, I have young children. I have hopefully another 47 years to live.
Right.
I couldn't imagine being that disinterested or that just that closed-minded, I guess, about what it takes to live a long, healthy existence. And I don't want to live sitting in a chair, not being able to move my body or
what's the point?
What's the point? Why be here?
Right.
And so it comes with some forms of discipline. I realize that. But hopefully with the years, that as we age, that, some wisdom does tend to sink in there. And we just start to make some better decisions and take those baby steps to start omitting some stuff that we know is truly bad for us. Like maybe don't start the day off with an energy drink, or maybe don't drink a 6-pack of soda a day, or, simple things. Don't get the 800-calorie coffee that's mixed with all kinds of other stuff in it. Or start cooking at home more a little bit and taking leftovers with you to eat for lunch at work. Just things like that. Drink. Always have a big stainless steel container or a large mug of water kind of available to you, or, drink more of it while you're eating, because water obviously helps digestion and helps move everything around. It's obviously one of the most... water can fix so much because so many people are just living dehydrated. Unbelievable. But what's one more thing that you would like people listening right now to consider when it comes to cleaning things up a little bit and making, kind of making a change. And listen, if somebody is listening right now that knows they need to do this and they've kind of been putting it off. And so what could you say to that person today?
Well, okay, first of all, I want to offer my help. If anybody feels like they need guidance, I can do a consult for you. I have, completely dedicated my life to trying to help people make changes. And I'm even open to receiving emails and answering questions that way as well at no charge. But so if you are ready to improve your health, just start writing down what you're eating, because the first step is awareness. A lot of people don't even realize what they're putting in their mouth. So just recording everything that you eat and drink, everything, including things like cough drops and chewing gum. I don't know how many times I found toxic chewing gum in the pocket of one of my patients, and they just didn't even realize that they were eating something that was really bad for them.
Wow.
So awareness is step one. And if you don't want to write, download a food journal app on your phone. I even have to tell people, take photos of your food and then, review it at the end of the week. So you have a starting point. And then, like I said, identify something you're doing that's not good for you, and make a change. A very small change once a week is going to make a huge difference. Yeah,
I think that's great. The awareness and the logging or tracking of what you're actually putting in your body. I did that for about a 6-month period 2 years ago, and lost over 20 pounds. And I'm generally in pretty good shape, but I'm definitely not at an ideal weight. In fact, I got down much lower than I wanted to be. I actually wanted to put some weight back on, but just by tracking my caloric intake and knowing exactly what was going in my body, nothing else was different. My exercise and my activity, that was unchanged, totally the same. It was purely just, what I was putting in my body and knowing. Because so many of us, we think we know, but until we actually write it down or track it. And MyFitnessPal is a really easy app. That's how I did it. And there's other apps out there too, but that's the one I used and had great success with it. So I do recommend that to people. So what are the best places for people to go, Dr. Cori, to find you? Obviously, your website, drcori.com. It's drcori.com, Dr. Cori. And that would be obviously one good resource. Are there other places that people should possibly go?
Yeah, sure. And on that website, there's also a free download of a PDF that's everyday items you never knew were toxic. So that it's an interesting list of things that will surprise you. And I have a YouTube health channel called Dr. Cori Stern, Take Control of Your Health. So if you just put my name in the search, you should be able to find it. And I put videos on there as often as possible, all, as concise as I can, but I explain things in language that people can understand about health and different conditions, different things that you might be struggling with. And I always give recommendations for solutions.
Oh, that's fantastic. I appreciate certainly your knowledge and wisdom in this area, but as you just said, your ability to talk through things in a very easy to understand way, not talking over people's heads. I think that's one thing that people can get frustrated with, or it's someone of a certain level of expertise that it's flying over the top of them. They're like, I didn't understand a word of it. Right. This is, I think, very easy for even a very young person to understand and to start to adopt some good habits. And please reach out to Dr. Cori, drcori.com, drcori.com. She has a free resource there for you. And certainly check out her YouTube channel, or YouTube show. And we appreciate all of you listeners again for coming back to the Strong by Design podcast. It's been just such a pleasure to have guests like Dr. Cori and others this year, to learn so much, not just personally, but then to share all these great conversations with people from all different walks of life. So what an honor it is, what a privilege it is here at Critical Bench. So Coach Chris here at Strong by Design. We'll talk to you next week. Every Wednesday, a new episode releases here. God bless you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.